thank you everyone for joining us here in our monthly webinars there. We took the August month off there for a little R&R recuperation, and we're back here in September. It's fall now, and we are excited to get going again. So this month, we are talking about the MITRE ATT&CK framework, or also titled When ChatGPT Attacks. This is a topic that sometimes causes a little bit of debate internally within Cyentia. We have LLM ChatGPT boosters, and we have ChatGPT LLM skeptics, bots are going to destroy us all perspectives. And we're hoping to, if not answer that question, at least shine a little illumination onto it, if that could be fair enough. But I thought it might be good to start off with actually asking a few questions of ChatGPT prior. So I'm going to try to change screens again and do this live demo. Let's see what I can do here. I am going to share. And hopefully that is now showing a ChatGPT window. It is, thumbs up. So the question we first thought of starting to answer was this one. Explain the MITRE ATT&CK framework as if I was 5 years old. But, you know, I was thinking just prior to this webinar that wouldn't be very on brand for me. So I'm going to change it. I'm going to say, explain the MITRE ATT&CK framework as if I was a cat. Because, you know, I do happen to like cats, and I sneak them into every presentation. So I have to put it in there. So what's ChatGPT going to say the MITRE ATT&CK framework? Meow. Okay, imagine you're a curious cat, and the MITRE ATT&CK framework is like a big map of all the sneaky tricks that mischievous mice can use to get away from you. It's a special guide for humans who want to know how computer bad guys, known as hackers, try to sneak into computer systems and cause trouble. This is actually not a bad summary. I enjoy this quite a bit. And there's some other nice tidbits in here as well. So you have different strategies for catching mice, helps humans understand how to protect their systems better. I love this particular comment on here about just like you might put a bell on your collar to warn mice, humans use the information from MITRE ATT&CK to set up defenses. This is great stuff. Okay, ChatGPT, I'll give you this point. This is a good summary.
It won you over with the cats. That's pretty good.
You know, I am nothing if not predictable. Now, I think, Wade, you insist that we actually give it a more straightforward one there. I just ask it to explain the MITRE framework. Is that correct?
Yeah, and maybe why security professionals should care.
And why security professionals question. Like a treasure map, a comprehensive and structured knowledge base that describes the tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs, for cyber adversaries. And we actually even get bullet points in here. This is fantastic. Comprehensive understanding, real-world relevance, threat intel. Oh my goodness, it's still going. Training and education, communication, risk assessment, vendor and tool evaluation. I like all these things on here.
Yeah, I do too. And, you know, in lieu of doing, since we're talking about MITRE ATT&CK, we would have to kind of, hey, define it and tell you what it is anyway. And this looks like a pretty good summary of what it is, if you are not very familiar with it, and why in the world we're even bothering to talk about it on a Cyentia Institute webinar. So, and some of these use cases actually we'll kind of get in today. Risk assessment, for instance, is one that we have been experimenting a lot lately with both ATT&CK and ChatGPT and other LLMs to see how can we supplement the kinds of information that we need to collect to conduct data-driven risk assessment better, and put that in, you know, in attack techniques, for instance, that defenders care about. So a lot of these things are spot on. So we have a sense for what it is for cats and what it is for security professionals. On the fly, I was trying to think of something cat related for security pros, but I couldn't do it.
That's
it was a fail.
Keepers.
Hopefully that wasn't too awkward, but oh well. You strike out sometimes.
Indeed. Now, I do have to admit there are things that ChatGPT does less well. For instance, I can ask it to write a biography for myself. Try to keep it short. And it gets things wrong. I like San Francisco, but I've never been born there. I do not have a bachelor's degree in computer science. I did not join Cyber Defend, certainly not right after graduation. And I've never really conducted penetration tests in Fortune 500 companies. Well, I am a recovering CISSP. I was never a CEH. So no, this is not so right. So what we're seeing here is that for some things, ChatGPT is reasonably good at. And then there are things that it does less well, such as summarizing some particular forms of factual information. And the question we were trying to answer is, where does ChatGPT fit in this question for relevance for the attack framework? So I'm going to go back over to our slides now.
Your bio, even though it had some false information, was better than what ChatGPT gave me when I said write a bio for Wade Baker at Cyentia Institute. It basically said, I'm only trained on data through 2021, and Wade Baker wasn't known in the security community in 2021. So maybe he got his start after that. Which, I was like, someone's manipulating. But hey, there you go.
So why does Cyentia care about the MITRE ATT&CK framework? Obviously, it is a framework which many people are familiar with now. It has become really a cornerstone in its time being. It's up to version 13 or so right now, many iterations from the MITRE family there. We here at Cyentia have been using the MITRE framework for a number of years ourselves. We've used it in several reports, some of which I hope that many of you are familiar with, such as the IRIS 2022 report, where we started cross-referencing initial attack mechanisms and mitigations. That's a publicly available report. For today's report, we're going to be focusing on three either just released or not yet released reports, all of which are focused on attack. One of which is a report that we call the Retina T for the threat event analysis, where we spill the tea on threat events through the lenses of the MITRE ATT&CK framework and Varus. It's one we've been working on for quite some time now. We're very happy to say that it's now out the door. This next one is one we've done in collaboration with Risk Recon. I believe it's due out next month, and it's called Ripples Across the Attack Surface. It's the third edition of the Ripple series we've done with Risk Recon. And this time we're taking an attack-focused phase is to look at what's happening on these multi-party breaches when we leverage the attack framework. And then the third, which is all kinds of novel for us here, is this one that we're coming out later this year with title Cyber, I believe next month as well, which is this multi-source analysis of MITRE ATT&CK techniques. This is another report in our SOSO series. And it's a bit of a deviation because we're actually doing this one in landscape layout, which is all exciting for us. We're getting all edgy. So we certainly have opinions on what data can tell us through the lens of MITRE ATT&CK. And we hope to share a little bit about what ChatGPT says and what our data says and how do those two match up or differ. So with that, let's get to it. So our first question here is, what are the most common attack techniques overall? And you'll see in our little, totally non-copyrighted Futurama character here, we have ChatGPT's answer, which is in the most common MITRE ATT&CK framework techniques can vary. However, as of the last knowledge update in September 2021, the most commonly observed technique is phishing. And that's technique 1566. There's a couple things to note here. First of which is the date on this, September 2021. So this is now 2 years to the day, almost out of date. Not necessarily being a fatal flaw, but it is a strong caution. I do understand even with the OpenAI model that there are some newer sources available in it, but certainly in the public version there, you're looking at information that is not cutting edge. But overall, I kind of like this one. It's a good example there. Wade, do you have anything to add on that before we talk about some of what we see in our data?
Yeah, I think let's jump to the data because that's what we really want to test is, hey, how far off is attack ChatGPT, excuse me, and I'll take this one. One we didn't show, if David, if you can back up just for a second, just so people aren't trying to decipher the slides. Thanks. David mentioned the IRIS 2022, which was published last October, and we ranked the most common attack techniques according to the incidents that we analyzed. And for most industries, phishing was, in fact, number one or number two. So not a bad answer. And of course, that was published last year, which means the data probably was very similar to the data set that it's using. But let's look at some newer research and beyond sort of one single source. And that's what this is. This study is going to be out, say, in a month or so. What we did was we gathered, I think it was 20 something different published reports from all kinds of different security companies and organizations that said, hey, we see some corner of the threat world, and here's the top techniques that we see. And then we did some analysis, some meta-analysis on those, and tried to derive kind of a most reported through the lens of all of these sources. And what you're looking at here is what that looks like. So the ones that have, you can see the legend up at the top. So it's the heat is more sources reported that technique. And let's see, what is phishing, David? Is it 15?
Yeah, 1566, I want to say off the top of my head. Yes, 1566.
Okay. Yeah, okay. 1566 is number 3 on initial access technique. So certainly one of the more commonly reported ones. But if you look down here at the top 10 overall, it's not even in the top 10, according to the most reported techniques across the 20 different sources that we used in this. And, you know, I feel like this is a win for the kind of research that we do. You know, we're not quite yet being replaced by ChatGPT, even though it's fantastic and better at us than quickly summarizing any topic that you give it. Sometimes you got to dig in a little bit and really go through and know your source material to be able to do a synthesis view like this across multiple sources. So yay, we still have jobs. And what I do like, though, is in the answer that ChatGPT gave, it said the most common technique will vary by various things. And that is absolutely true. So what we're trying to show here is the frequency, not just most reported, but when you look at these sources, if they said, like, Arete, for instance, we did this research, and 1486, which is data encrypted for impact, basically ransomware, was in 100% of the investigations that they did and reported on. Whereas for the other people, it's not as high because they're not a ransomware only report. That report was exclusively ransomware, so it's not shocking. But anyway, you're looking at a comparison of frequency, and you can just tell that all of these different sources are seeing different techniques at different rates of occurrence. And there's reasons for that. Like we could go in, I just told you why Arete is 100% for data encrypted for impact. But all of these things have a reason why it might be more or less, or they might see that, or be in a position to see that better than others. And highlighted down there is 1566 phishing, you know, which again for NCC group is looks like the number 1 technique, but doesn't look top 3 or even top 5 for many of the others. So I mean, ChatGPT was dead on in the sense that it depends is a valid answer when you look at a top attack techniques.
ChatGPT certainly vying for the consultant answer of it depends in every case there. But for me, this really highlights the fact that knowing the trustworthiness of your sources is really important. This is something that we certainly focus on a lot here at Cyentia, is making sure that we have high quality data there. And certainly when you look at multiple reports, whether it is through the eyes of a human analyst or through the robotic eyes of something like an LLM, it is much more difficult to know which sources are trustworthy in nature. I mean, the training source matters quite a lot. Except in some cases where we think the training is really good, which we'll talk about a little bit later on.
I think we have another slide, but let's skip this. It's more of the same, but focusing on frequency instead of reported sources, and you can read the report later if you're interested in that.
But something we always say in the IRIS series is frequency matters, but it also is important to understand the loss side. If from a traditional FAIR model or other risk management perspective, you have how often does the bad thing occur, and then how bad does it hurt? So we can also ask the same question of which attack techniques contribute to the largest financial damages out there. And again, we have the same type of answer, and it is caveated with September 2021 as of the information that's in there. It's interesting that there is this caveat in here, and this is a bit of a wall of text there, which is typically what you get out of a ChatGPT type of thing there, unless you're asking it to play it as a cat. Here are some attack techniques that, if exploited, could lead to substantial financial losses. So here we have already two qualifiers in the statement of that if these are exploited, they could lead to substantial losses. The actual answer that it gives for the number one of ransomware, T1486, which is that encrypted for data exfiltration, I believe, technique, is certainly plausible from a standpoint there, but it is there's a lot of caveats around that particular approach. So the question we can then ask then from the Retina T is, what do we actually see in those events? And we look at, what are the attack techniques that actually lead to this type of event there. The overwhelming majority of them involve valid account credentials. So this is not actually focusing upon the exfiltration or impact side, but that initial access mechanism there. And valid accounts, good old T10750, 1078 is a huge majority of those events out there. So in this case, we are seeing that, yes, ransomware is certainly very prevalent from a mindshare perspective, and that reflects in the training data that something like ChatGPT says. However, when we look at the data out there from an Iris perspective or from our Retina series, ransomware is certainly prevalent, but it's not the overwhelming concern that many organizations should be worried about.
Just to add a little bit to this, the Retina threat event analysis, I'm not going all salesy, but this is a for-fee analytical report that we have available. If you're interested, hit us up. We take tens of thousands of incidents, publicly reported incidents and losses, analyze them, draw out attack techniques for things like this, right? What proportion of all the losses that we know about over the last decade involved valid accounts? It's somewhere in the thing, and this says 98% of them. And we do that for every single attack technique that we can recognize. And if I recall correctly, when we look at the exfiltration and impact, the sort of last two tactics in attack, I do believe that data encrypted for impact is the largest share of losses among those exfiltration and impact known techniques. So, in that sense, it's right. But if you're looking at all across all tactics, valid accounts is tied to more dollars than anything else. But that's the kind of thing we're trying to do in this risk retina for threat event analysis is distill all of those losses, not only into just attack, but into Varus. So if you are a Varus fan, which is used quite often in the Verizon DBIR, we're looking at those kinds of things and threat actors, internal versus external, and all that kind of stuff as well. So let us know if that sounds interesting.
Excellent. So let's talk about another area that we happen to have strong opinions about and have done quite a lot of work in. This is multi-party cyber incidents. So we've asked ChatGPT to define, what are multi-party cyber incidents? And again, we have another large bit of text here, but I'll summarize a few key points on this, saying that these are known as supply chain or third-party cyber incidents. These refer to breaches or attacks that have a ripple effect across multiple organizations or entities. I happen to love the fact that they actually includes the ripple effect. To my knowledge, that is a term that we have coined here at Cyentia. I'm not aware of other organizations using that before us, but if so, I'm happily corrected. But if not, then the fact that ChatGPT is trained off of all reports is just awesome. I think it's great that the information is getting out there. But this is not a bad thing, but I think we can improve upon this definition a little bit. So the definitions that we use in our ripple reports is that breaches we define a ripple as a breach where there are effects upon three or more firms. So not just one party and another party, but actually three or more. The initial victim and at least two others, where there exists some kind of business-to-business relationship. And that fact of business to business relationship is important because we're talking about things that aren't just traditional supply chain events. The supply chain events can be ripple events, but they can be other things as well, because there are other forms of relationships, legal relationships, physical product supplies that are beyond just traditional cyber and data type developments there. And those types of relationships are important to capture when we're talking about the impact of events that come from the cyber realm. We've talked a lot about the impacts of things that have impacts beyond just the technical aspect, and certainly physical things are very relevant as well. We're experiencing one as we speak with the MGM event and so forth there, where these technical issues spill over into physical aspects as well. So with that definition in mind, we can actually talk about what are some of the common initial access techniques used in these ripple events or these multi-party incidents there. And we get the same type of thing here. We're looking at phishing being one of the most common ones. I don't hate this one. This is actually really good. And actually, we can look at what we see in some of our reports here. So this is coming out of this forthcoming research on ripples across the attack surface. We can actually look at across a couple different dimensions. And this nuance is something that is sometimes hard to communicate in the ChatGPT chat instance, where the prompt engineering matters quite a lot. How you ask the question influences what you get back out. And here, from a more manual analyst perspective, we can give you several different nuances on that answer. So if you look at it via the three dimensions of frequency, losses, and the number of parties involved, you get different answers. In the case of frequency and parties, the most common one is something we've seen previously, which is valid accounts. But if you look at terms of what has the most impact in terms of losses, it's this exploiting of a public-facing application. So the answer depends upon why you're asking the question.
Yeah,
So
I think it's really interesting about I mean, clearly we asked most common, and to me that sort of leans frequency. But if you use language like what are the top, that gets especially nebulous. I think you might, any one of these could be the answer to that. So like you said, David, prompt engineering is something that we have found matters a lot when we're trying to use ChatGPT or other LLMs to assist our research, just because little things that don't seem important are actually a big deal.
Yep. So the takeaway from our perspective, who's the winner in this race between man-machine, the modern John Henry steel driving man there? I think the answer is you, the practitioner, ultimately the winner of this. We have tried to do several experiments and continue to do experiments with ChatGPT and other types of LLMs here internally, with mixed results, to be honest, so far. We've been exploring elements such as incident classification, taking high-level summaries of events and driving out more information, more forensic style information, so that we can do such things as the MITRE ATT&CK mappings and the various mappings. In that particular area, we have had more success with more boring old machine learning models and natural language processing than ChatGPT so far. It's not that it's not interesting, it's just that it's a very difficult topic to infer those facts correctly. And currently using the expertise of security professionals is really key to actually do that job well. We've also looked at things such as exploit detection, trying to comb the internet for information about whether or not given CVEs are exploited in the wild. Also mixed results on that so far. We've done quite a lot of work on exploit prediction here at Cyentia through our involvement with the first SIG on EPSS. If you're interested in talking more about the exploit intelligence service, we'd be happy to talk about that. But we continue to look for how do we expand our sources of information so that we can get more current information more quickly, more better for our customers and readers of our research. And so far, LMs are interesting and promising, but they have not delivered a whole lot of concrete use for us at this time. Wade, do you have anything particularly to add on those topics? I know we keep trying to use it.
Yeah, no, I'm still optimistic, and we've had some areas of success, but Yeah, I keep wishing we could just show it a data set and say, write a fantastic report on this with Star Wars jokes and, all old song lyrics, but I guess I have to keep working for a little while longer, at least.
Sorry, not quite yet. So if those types of things are of interest to you, Star Wars jokes and actual analyst-driven nuance there, I mentioned a little bit about the Retina T report there as a sneak preview. We've talked about this in previous webinars, the Retina threat event analysis report, sometimes called the Retina Attack or Retina Virus in previous iterations. I'm happy to announce that this is actually now finally live. We've been working on this for quite some time. It's available for purchase now. If you go out to this link, which has not yet been promoted, you get the first sneak peek, and that's also in the QR code. Woo! You can go out this page and click on our fancy, shiny new web cart, where you can actually don't have to interact with those messy humans at all, and you can purchase your copy of the report today and have it automatically delivered to you in nice, sanitized, automated fashion. So I know we try to keep these to about half an hour. We're about at that mark right now, but I'd love to take any questions from the audience, or wait, if you think we've skipped over something, we're happy to go into more detail there.
No, let's do Q&A.
Chat.
Let's see if anybody has any questions.
Fantastic. If you have questions, you can either use the Q&A or use the chat functionality. We are on both. And I'd love to hear if you found ChatGPT useful for security research yourself. I'd love to hear how you've been using that.
Always the silent question period. No questions.
No questions so far.
I will say, if you're wondering when the research that we mentioned is going to come out, you can get this Retina threat event analysis now, but the other two reports, Ripple's attack and the meta study on attack, just, subscribe to our mailing list or follow us on social media. We will announce when those are available, and those are going to be, we'll direct you to where they are and when you can get them. But they're both good and ready to go. Just waiting for release.
The best sources to get information out, because social media is a bit of a tire fire these days, is probably LinkedIn. That's the most reliable way of learning about those. That LinkedIn, and of course, our mailing us as well. But if you like the old-fashioned handcrafted emails, there we're happy to be on there. I do see a question from Jared. Hey, Jared, on asking about ChatGPT being about 80% correct. Do you have any examples where it did more harm than good? I can't, I'll defer to Wade on this. I have not seen examples in our research where it's done more harm than good, only examples where it's just been nonsensical. And that is frankly because we've been feeding it sparse and rather messy information, such as trying to do things such as incident classification, where the source coming in is very messy to begin with, and what's coming out has not been super useful. But I've not seen it do something where it's actively harmful. And Wade, do you have any examples of that?
I don't have any examples, but I will just share something here just to give you a sense of. Oh well, I can't share while you're sharing. It's not important.
Oh, I can.
But there's like a 100-page document, AI for incident research, where we are just trying different prompts to collect attack, Varus, other type of method information about security incidents, public security incidents. What are the attack techniques used in the blah incident of 2022 or whatever? And that is what we want it to be able to speed up, so we don't have to have us people going through and collecting all that information. And we've had much lower than 80% correct on that. We've done some initial trials, and it's just the combination of assigning things that weren't actually involved and missing things that were. Again, does this do any harm? I don't know that harm is done, but harm might be done if we just said, "Hey, it's right. Let's roll with it." We haven't gotten to a point where we're comfortable yet with the false positives and false negatives on that kind of use case. So yeah, I don't know if that helps. We haven't let it get to the point where there might be harm actually done yet, is probably one thing to caveat that with.
I know we have worked with a product from MITRE called TRAM, the acronym, which is going to escape me at the moment there, for trying to do extraction of reports there. And there's been lots of false positives in that.
I would say that's less than 20% accurate.
Probably far less than 20%.
The reverse, yeah.
A great next question from Anurag on public disclosure of sensitive information in AI models. We saw a little bit of that, one example of that in a non-harmful way with just our questions on multi-party events, where it actually used our definition of RIPL, or one very similar to our definition of RIPL in its responses. Yeah, that is certainly a problem. It's certainly one that's actually been getting press coverage recently about all the different copyrighted and other sorts of closed source information that's being used to train these models, and how does that affect property rights and other sorts of issues in the modern economy. I don't have the answer to that. Outside of that, lots of people are thinking about it. There's several efforts underway from, I've seen them from NIST and MITRE. I think the FAIR Institute is even trying to answer these questions about how do we manage risk of AI models out there. Certainly being done at very high levels. You have congressional members talking about it, the EU's talking about it, of course. I don't think there's a good question to it yet, but I think it's something that we need to address. And so we are certainly staying active in that area and looking to be part of that conversation. And I think our last question here, a bit of a layup there from Jared, bless you, is what is the missing element in my security market?
You just got to stand up a little higher.
What is it? Let me just kind of go down. There we go. It is Cyentia. Whether you are interested in a practitioner in the MITRE ATT&CK report there, which is available from order direct from our website, or whether you'd like to talk with us about our exploit intelligence service or doing some commissioned or sponsored research, we'd be happy to chat with you. You can always reach out to us at info@cyentia.com with these or any other questions you may have. We will be delighted to chat with you. Thank you all for attending. Have a great month, and we look forward to talking with you again very soon now. Bye.